Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and we don't have news this week. We don't have a bit this week. I'm finding it very hard to come up with bits about this episode. There's not a lot for me here to work with.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I mean, all I have is like the one little trivia thing that they put on Wikipedia about this episode, and that's the only thing I can talk about for this whole entire episode. I really don't have anything else.
I'm curious if your trivia thing is going to be also a thing that I mention.
Oh, is it about the mineral?
I do have a note about the mineral. I do have a note down here about it. I'm gonna try to not jinx this, and I'm gonna say that I expect this will be a short episode.
Okay.
Which is good because last time we did a super long episode.
That's very true. So this is kind of like a nice balance of
this is a breather. Well, I think that's the intent of the episode. I think that's why they put such a light episode right after the Truth and Consequences episode. And it's not like stuff doesn't happen in this episode. Stuff happens with the characters. There's just like not a lot of plot.
Right. I feel like it's a lot of setup for whatever is supposed to happen in the next episode. So it's not like
I have theories about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a theory about that. But I don't think we have any super important news that I can think of off the top of my head. The sports ball game gave us some more Mandalorian trailer, but I don't think there was anything that interesting that we're not going to cover in our Mando episode 0 review.
Right.
I know we're talking about Bradley's shelves. I'm looking at the chopper that's directly above his shoulder now. That's how little I have to talk about. I'm willing to talk about Bradley's Star Wars shrine that he has. How many Grogus do you have, Bradley?
Enough.
Are you sure?
I think so.
You have enough?
I'm pretty sure I have enough to the point where like they just announced or they released a bunch for Book of Boba Fett, and one of them is a Grogu, and I was just like, I'm not getting that one. I can't. I'm done at this point because it takes up too much space.
I appreciate your restraint. It's character development.
It really is. Speaking of character development.
And speaking of character development, Bradley, you want to take us into the episode?
Yeah, so this week we're talking about the 9th episode of the second season titled The Crossing, where the team tackles a risky mission on a hostile world. Charles, what is one thing you liked about the episode and one thing you did not?
One thing I liked, I'll mention a few specific points, but I liked that Hunter and Tech, but particularly Hunter, got things to do outside of what normally we would see those characters doing. Particularly Hunter, who is normally like the grumpy one, the I don't want to do this one. And then they get into the field, and we rarely get to see Hunter like showing off the things that distinguish him from a normal clone. So I think it is really cool that he got some moments of that, and he got some moments to show where he is as a character. Where he has grown over the course of the 20-something episodes of this show. 25. This is episode like 25 of the show or whatever. And I also liked all the stuff with Tech, but we'll talk about that. One thing that I didn't like, while I appreciate that this episode slowed down to let us have character moments, I do wish there had been slightly more, I guess I want to say impetus or drive to the episode. Maybe a sense of urgency was what I was looking for. It felt very much like the entire point of the episode was they were moving from point A to point B in terms of the plot. Now, we got a bunch of really good character stuff that I liked a lot, but the episode didn't feel as urgent as I think the situation needed it to be. Like, they've lost the Marauder, they're running out of food, now they've lost their Ipsium that they've got. So I think it could have used more of a sense of urgency. I think it could have used a little bit. They could have, as one of my college professors used to say, they could have raised the stakes more for this episode. And that was my thing that I didn't like. Bradley, what about you? One thing you liked and one thing you did not.
I have to agree with you on the did not like. I think you're right. It just felt like there was no oomph to the episode. There was no like, oh no, we're in immediate danger. Oh no, we're in immediate this. Like I felt like the stakes were kind of semi-low for what we were getting. And I kind of felt like as the episode was going on, I was like, is there supposed to be a conclusion to this episode? Like it kept going on and on and on. And I was like, aren't we supposed to have some kind of sense of like completion by the end of this
Apparently
episode.
not.
Yeah, and we didn't really get it, and that's why I didn't really like about the episode because I wasn't expecting it to be a semi two-parter as well. So I was kind of like shocked by the end. I was like, oh, it just ends, and no, there's no resolution. One thing I liked though was, this is again another tech character development episode slash let's pretend that this is not a tech season. I don't know why we're not pretending that this is the tech season of tech, but it clearly is because he keeps getting all these like standout moments of here, I need to develop as a person.
So
So
he's gonna die, right?
yeah, that's my theory.
That he's gonna die.
Yeah,
we're gonna lose tech.
Yeah, I told this to you off air, but I think that, the whole Echo leaving the group is a red herring to Tech dying. I think they're like, oh, Echo's leaving, so he must be the one that's gonna go away at the end of the season. But I think they're kind of teasing us that maybe it's gonna be Tech. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, well, I guess let's dive into this episode. We're doing a Southwest vibe, like, immediately from the get-go. Like, with the plucked banjo strings and the fact that this planet looks like the Southwest with the big mesas and the rock formations. They're really trying to invoke the Old West here. And even the inciting incident of the plot where Sid buys a mine and then sends sight unseen and then sends some people to go look at the mine, that's a classic Old West plot. They're really leaning into it with this episode. Let's talk about that mine.
Yes.
You said you had a fact about Ipsium, the mineral that they are mining.
Yeah, I'm curious what your fact is or whatever your note is about it.
So my note on Ipsium was that Ipsium is new. Ipsium
Okay.
is completely new. We have never seen it in Star Wars before that I can find. However, it might be a reference to Lorem Ipsum, which is filler text. Whenever you have like gibberish text that you have to include in it, like a document, like somebody picks up a document and it's just like typed out and you can't barely see. The actual text that goes on there is called Lorem Ipsum, which it may be a reference to that. I don't know. Bradley might be about to correct me on that front.
You are very close, almost right on the money, actually. Okay, so it is a pun by the writers. In Latin, ipsum is the inflection of ipsi, the third person singular reflexive form of a pronoun, i.g., himself, herself, itself, etc. Thus, the characters literally go into the cave to find ipsum to find themselves.
Oh, god damn it.
That is a direct quote from Wikipedia.
So Star Wars.
Is that not hilarious or what? So that makes the episode a little bit better.
Star Wars. Oh, I'm never going to be able to shut up about that fact now.
Yeah, because
I'm never going to be able to shut up about that. Oh my god. I love that. That's great.
You're gonna be the person who, like, when people are watching this episode, be like, actually, so
No, I am that person. No, I am fucking exhausting to watch Lord of the Rings with. I am fucking exhausting. There's a joke in like Lord of the Rings circles, particularly on TikTok, is like you can't go through the two towers without somebody turning to the rest of the group during the scene where Aragorn kicks the helmet and saying, Viggo Mortensen broke two of his toes, and that scream was because it's a genuine scream of pain, and they left it in the movie. I'm that person.
Yep. I'm
that person that has to be like, did you know? This is really fascinating about this scene. I'm exhausting to watch things with. I just am. That's who I am as a human person.
Well, there you go. That was your only fact for this episode, which is an enjoyable fact for sure.
It is a fun fact, a literal fun fact, not the phrase I say when I'm about to ruin everyone's day or waste their time. So we see somebody like who's disguised. Now, I thought that this person that's disguised that later sneaks onto the Marauder, I thought that person like had like bluish purple hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched it again, and those are feathers. So like this
person,
it
says feather color,
can completely see like concealed from head to toe. We don't know who this is. I'm hearing some people say that it's Hondo, but I have a different theory, which I will talk about later in a minute.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking at the picture now of the person, and they look like, I actually thought Hondo too when I was watching it, but
they got the Hondo color scheme is the thing.
Color
They're wearing
scheme,
the
right.
Hondo jacket. They're kind of like they've got the brown helmet that kind of invokes Hondo's skin.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's not a close person. Like it's not super close, but it's close enough to be. I get where it's kind. You know what I mean?
It's visual shorthand.
Yeah, I like it. Well, and actually, that's why I was jokingly thinking like, oh, maybe this is like not an acolyte of Hondo, but maybe like his assistant or like one of his people or something. I
One
don't
of
know.
his pirates.
Yeah, because maybe he'll show up in the next episode. That would be an interesting.
Again, I have a theory, but I have
Okay,
one more note between. I have one
okay.
note between this section when we first see the person and
Hmm.
my theory. I do like how they have not glossed over the fact that Echo has left and that Omega is very upset about it. Now, I also like that Omega is really only like moping about it for this one episode, but I do think that it's more in line with her character to have an episode immediately following something like that where she has to learn to deal with it. So I do like that a lot. Okay, here's my theory about who that is.
Okay, cool.
All right, we saw in the trailer, you remember the shots with all the kids in the mine? I
Yes,
think it's one of the kids.
I think so too.
I think
Yeah.
that they've not left the planet with the Marauder. They're going to find some sort of like clue to lead them to the Marauder, and in the process, they're going to find like somebody who is trying to free these kids from this mine, and they're also going to find like very young clones in the mine or something. But if not, they're just going to find this mine, and that's going to be the plot of the next episode, which I
Hmm.
believe is called The Outpost. Am I remembering that right?
Oh, no. Next episode is called Retrieval.
Okay. Oh yeah, and then the Outpost is after that, and then Metamorphosis, Pabu, the
Right.
Summit, and Plan 99.
Right. Well, and I think Tipping Point is in there too.
Retrieval. So retrieval being the
The
tipping
retrieval
points
of
in
the
this
ship.
summary,
Right.
being the retrieval of the ship. Yes,
Right.
I think that is the plot we're going for. That is
Yeah,
my
I think
theory
so.
here.
Yeah. It seems it's so obvious too, because it's like if we didn't know that the next one was called Retrieval, like they end this episode on such like an obvious, like, well, they have to go get their fucking ship. So
Yep, there's not gonna be an easy way out of this.
right.
But I do like so they go into the mine. We're skipping over a lot of this because it's just like it's not. There's a lot of character back and forth and nice little character moments, and I want to stop every time somebody says a line, and I'm like, oh, that's a really good line. That's a really nice conversation. I don't want to stop. Just
Right.
assume if I'm not talking about a little character moment that I still liked it. The ship gets stolen. They end up having to walk. I do like how there's sort of a subtle like thing going on here where them being down a man, i.e. down Echo, really is hurting the team. Like they're trying to figure out who's going to do what. They only have one person on lookout. They end up having to leave Wrecker, who's not very good at it. Even though Tech is kind of a jackass to him later, repeatedly for a long period of time about losing the ship, which I was thinking to myself, like, why can't they just leave Wrecker at the ship? No, they don't have enough people.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what
I
they
think
should have done. If they had Echo, they would have left one person at the ship, one person at
at the
lookout of the
front of the
mine,
mine, right.
and they would have Hunter and Tech and Omega would have gone in. But because they're down a person, they can't leave Wrecker back at the ship, which is what they probably should have done.
And I thought about it too. And I was like, why don't they lock their ship? Like, I don't understand why that's not a thing in Star Wars. Like, just
So the
lock it.
plot can happen.
I'm like, yeah, but like, yeah,
Presumably, whoever stole it sliced the lock because later on they have a conversation where Omega tries to find the transponder, and Tech's
mm,
like, "Well, the transponder was disabled." Slicing is a relatively common-ish thing
gotcha.
in the Star Wars universe. That's my note on that. I also like when Hunter gets to Hunter, and by that means we have. So Hunter's whole thing, right, is that he has enhanced senses. That he's like a very good tracker. He's feels everything around him. I like how he has several moments in this episode, like when he's sensing the storm. I think when he senses the stampede is coming.
Right.
I just like when Hunter has those little moments because otherwise it's like, why are you here? Why are you
Yeah.
with the rest of these clones?
Other than
Like,
just being the leader. Yeah.
other than being the leader guy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, he has a. Alrighty, it's time for everyone's favorite segment. Whose goddamn white baby is that? Where I, a white person, tell you how bad the whitewashing looks on my 4K HD TV in the dark. And my conclusion this episode was, yeah, they're pretty much continuing the trend from the last three.
Yeah,
Like,
there wasn't anything.
it's gotten better. There was never a point where I was like, oh, that person is incredibly super white. It's also not far enough. It's the same thing. Like, I keep saying, we're going to have to retire this segment here shortly because it looks like they tweaked everything going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fine. It's not as bad. It also does help that they spend a lot of this episode in caves. And I also do think it helps that they spend a lot of this episode in like a very orange environment. So it's not, the glare isn't as strong on them as it would be in a place like Camino or Collar or Hoth. If they were to go to Hoth, that would be a problem.
Where they would literally be using white highlights to
where they would be washed
everything up.
the fuck out.
Right.
I think the lighting is also helping, the same as it did on Kashyyyk. So to seeing this scene happen,
right?
Because I certainly did. I was like, my God. Anyway, they have the stampede, and then the storm shows up, and then they lose the Epsium, and all of this continues to go on, and then they have this conversation in the cave. And the thing I wanted to highlight here is I do like how Hunter is getting better at being the team dad, because we saw in the early episodes of the show he didn't quite know how to relate to Omega, and he treated his team members just like soldiers. And we see this one, not only him being completely in tune with what Omega is going through, but we also see him talk to Tech in a way that's much more informal than he would have spoken to Tech at the beginning of the series. And I do think that is cool. That is a good way of showing how much he's developed as a character. I like Tech's line, "I'm fully aware that you are capable of the task." I just love that line.
I just like how Tech is so matter of fact with everything. Like, he is so great. I do love when he does that stuff because it's hilarious. On one hand, like, you know, on the other hand, it's very much like, no, he's not being rude. He just is that way. Like,
we'll get to that, and this episode has such a great explanation for why Tech is the way he is, and like it's such a good way of explaining it to children. The way that they do it in this episode, the way that they explain why does Tech talk like that all of the time. Like, that's not a bit, that's just how he is. But we'll get there when we get there. My next note, which basically covers everything, but I noted it specifically when they through a long and complicated series of events, Omega and Tech end up in a cave by themselves. And my note is, this is very pretty. This whole episode is so damn pretty. Like, my God, the animation on the lighting, the animation, the design of the entire area. Like, can you imagine if they did this during Clone Wars? Like, early Clone Wars?
I could see, you know what's funny is the Bad Batch is kind of like episodes they would have weaved into the Clone Wars had they thought of it earlier. Like, they probably would have been like, oh, let's do a couple of Bad Batch episodes mixed in with other episodes. Like, so you would have your Anakin episodes, you'd have your, you know, Bad Batch episodes, you know, you'd have a Kenobi episode. Like, they'd mix it all together. And I think it would be really interesting if they had done that.
Yeah, I was talking more in the sense of like the animation. Like, can you imagine how bad this would have looked if it had been done with like season 1 Clone Wars animation?
I mean, yeah, but still, it would have been the same plot.
Well, yeah, it would have been the same plot.
They wouldn't have been able to come up with anything more creative, which is why I was like, it seems like it's just mixed in. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, the Bad Batch overall as a series really just is like, did you like Clone Wars? Here's more Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's an extension of Clone Wars.
It's an extension of Clone Wars. The entire point of it is like, how did we go from the Clone Wars to this? How do we go from clones to stormtroopers? Like, that's the overarching plot of the entire show.
Yeah.
It's how do we go from clones to stormtroopers? And that is why I think that they're only getting 3 seasons, and that the Palpatine speech was the halfway point.
Yeah.
Of the entire show, because now we get to see the consequences for that. So Tech and Omega have their little conversation. There's 2 things I really liked in this. I do like how Tech very much is on the side of, if somebody makes a decision, I'm going to respect that decision. You know, I don't agree with it. It's the choice that they made, and there's no sense beating myself up about that. I really like that. I also just really like Tech's explanation of like, just because I don't process things the same way that you do doesn't mean I don't have any feelings at all. Like, it's so good. It's such a good way of explaining that. And I know that a lot of people who are neurodivergent have come out and said that that is one of the best explanations that they've ever heard for that concept. So I really like this scene. I think this is a really cool scene. 10 out of 10, no notes. Well,
Yeah.
other than the 2 notes that I had. They leave the cave. They manage to get to the spaceport, which is like this tiny, decrepit spaceport. And they call Sid for help. Pause, because we need to address something from our Bad Batch Season 1 coverage.
Okay.
That we fucked up. Now, I haven't gone back and checked, but we've gotten some new listeners over the course of our Bad Batch coverage, which I think is neat. Awesome. Welcome to the show. We're glad you're here. But some of those people have gone back and actually have been listening to our Season 1 coverage. And someone pointed out to us on Twitter that we forgot to mention that Rhea Perlman, who plays Sid, was in Cheers. Like, the whole casting gag of putting Rhea Perlman in this show as a bar owner is a reference to Cheers. And apparently, I've never seen Cheers. I know that Cheers exists, but I haven't seen it. Apparently, the Bolo and Ketch, the 2 guys that always hang out in Sid's bar, are a reference to 2 guys who always hang out in the bar in Cheers.
Oh, okay.
So we missed that, apparently. That's on us. I thought I had mentioned that she was in Cheers, but in case we did not, yes, Rhea Perlman as Sid is a giant reference to her being in Cheers.
Got it.
So that's a thing I had to bring up. Speaking of bringing things up, they do bring up Roland Durand, which I thought was interesting.
I did catch that, and I thought, why would you randomly bring up Roland Durand? Now, they obviously, Malegi, that just
Malegi
happened,
was earlier this season,
right?
So they're referencing that because that just
fine.
happened. And then they bring up Roland Durand.
Right, which I thought, that's not gonna come up again.
I can see the Chekhov's gun on the wall.
Yeah.
I can see the gun that you've put on the wall. That's, I see where you're going with this. This is going to come up.
Yeah, and also they're kind of leaning into that whole thing that Malegi said, which was, Sid is only going to look out for Sid. She's not going to look out for you guys. And as we can see from this conversation, she's like, I'll come for you guys in a few days.
Yeah, just deal with it. She doesn't even want to come for them at all. She's basically like,
yeah,
I've got other plates spinning. And Tech has to be like, do you remember when we saved your ass not once, not twice,
right,
but multiple times? And she's like, okay, fine. Okay, fine, I will come and get you. Yeah, it really does reinforce that point.
And it means she's not going to come get them because clearly in the next episode, they're going to get their shit back. And then they'll be like, okay, you don't have to come get us now. Like,
or she's going to wait. They're going to wait until she like literally shows up to be like, oh yeah, we got our shit back in the meantime. Sorry, guys. And then my final note is just that I like how Omega got her groove back by the end of the episode.
Yeah, because, as much as I like the character development and, oh no, I'm sad, Echo's gone. Like, I don't want sad Omega for the rest of the season. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad they gave it to her for this episode, and that's enough. Like, she needs to be over it.
We
She's
needed
an adult
to
now.
do it. We needed to do it because
Right.
it would not have felt right otherwise. It would have felt inconsistent with the character. But I also do like that by the end of the episode, Omega is back in action mode. She's no longer going to be sulking around. And that she really did take to heart the things that Tech said about, we're going to figure this out. We always figure this out. Tech just has a lot of confidence. And that's the thing that I think gets overlooked about Tech a lot, is that he's very confident that they will find a solution. And Omega's like, okay, I'm going to take that behavior and I'm going to implement it on myself, and we're going to maintain a positive attitude, and we're going to get out of this. All right, do you have any final thoughts on the episode, Bradley?
My final thoughts are ready to get our shit back.
Okay.
Because clearly the episode's not over. It doesn't feel that way anyway. I'm like, did they they didn't mean to do it. Did they mean to do this as another 2-parter right after a 2-parter? Like, I don't know.
It is a weird choice to do several two-parters in a row.
Yeah.
That is an odd choice because I think season 1 they put one in between the Baraka 2-parter and because they almost had like a 3-parter in season 1. They had the 2 Baraka episodes and then the episode where Omega was captured, and then I think they went to Ryloth immediately.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if the format of the show was 2-part, 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 then I would be like, whatever. But like, clearly that is not the case. And so it's just a weird choice. That's all. That's my final thought.
Yeah, my final thought is that, this is an episode of television that I watched with my eyeballs and comprehended, and I had a decent time watching it, and I would not... Chances are good that if this were not a 2-parter in the future, it's the type of episode that I would be like, oh, yeah, that episode happened. Okay. Completely
And
forgot about that.
I will say though, I am disappointed that this episode was not about Crosshair, even though it was called The Crossing. I thought that would have been very punny. Unfortunately, it was not. However, I also don't know what The Crossing is supposed to mean in this episode. They should have just called this episode Lorem Ipsum.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too when I was doing my notes. I was like, I wonder if the idea is they're crossing as in they're trying to cross the desert, but they don't make that really clear.
Yeah, it's not
It's a
clear
weird
enough.
episode title. I
Yeah,
I don't think I like the episode title. What I do like about this episode a lot is how we've only had to spend 30 minutes talking about it
and that's
as
enough.
opposed to the 3 hours that we recorded last week.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So I'm feeling pretty good about the amount of time we've had to spend recording. I have time at the end here to plug For Light and Dice, a Star Wars TTRPG actual play podcast that I do, DM'd by Chris from Darkside Divas, along with Hope from J Guys and Jedi, Jess from RuPaul's Pod Race, and our friend Colton and Nathan. If you go to the For Light and Dice Twitter account, you can actually find character cocktails that were made by Gold Squadron artist Jordan. Actually made some character cocktails that you can go and try out. So if you want to have character cocktails based on those characters, we have those on the Twitter now. And I get to do a whole long promo because we don't have an episode much to talk about this episode. That's it. Bradley, do you have anything you want to promote? Do you want to promote your OnlyFans?
No. Oh, actually, no, I don't think I'll promote it now, but I do have a show coming out that I worked on. It'll be at the end of March. So I'll probably plug it towards the end of Bad Batch / beginning of Mando. I'll throw it in there somewhere whenever that comes out.
Damn it, I was trying to trick you into revealing your OnlyFans exists.
No.
I have my theories, but I've never gotten it confirmed. It's one of the great mysteries. Oh my god. Well, yeah, go ahead everybody, check out For Light and Dice, and maybe Bradley will plug his show that he is working on that's coming out. Alright, and I guess we'll go ahead and run the socials.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gays. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gays, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gays.
They never said the title name in the show, so you can't roll the credits. Like, I don't understand why they didn't do
Thank
that.
God for that. Deprive you of that shitty joke.
I love that joke.
I hate you so much.